Welcome back to the Naked Woman podcast. I am your host, Gemma Louise Finch, and in today's episode, I talk all about people pleasing and how, through my time at the beach, I learned to unravel the threads around that identity and learn to finally say no. So let's jump back into the story of getting naked. So before we jump into the story, I really just want to give a little bit of background context into my relationship around people pleasing. And so for me, being a people pleaser was something that for as long as I can remember, I have done. And it felt very much a part of who I was, very much part of that identity. And I remember people used to tell me all the time, and they would say, "Will you just say no, Gemma?" And I would think, but how? How? Because the very thought of saying no used to fill me with fear, terror, anxiety. And whilst I could spend hours ruminating over, I'm going to say no, I'm going to say no, I'm going to say no, in the very moment that would then be needed for me to say no, I guarantee you it never happened. It was absolutely, yes, I will absolutely do this for you, even when I truly can't. And so it never felt like something that I could ever shift. In reflection, I can really see how my identity was wrapped up in this need to be liked and the need to please others. So people pleasing was just part of that. I I truly believe on some level, I thought that I was just being nice. I was being kind. Of course, I'm going to say yes because I'm a kind person and I want to help you and I care about your feelings, even if it causes me detriment. But that's okay because I'm this nice person who always smiles and never really says what she truly believes. But she's kind and she's caring, and that's what matters. And it wasn't till I started delving into personal development that I actually heard this, and it was that people pleasing is a form of manipulation. It's a form of manipulation that comes from a part of a person who fears people's reactions, fears being rejected, fears being seen, and how actually people pleasing isn't kindness, it's just fear disguised as niceness. Because true kindness comes from truth, and people pleasing, there's no truth to it. And I remember hearing that, and it really shifted something in me. And I started to become aware of all of the ways and the context and the situations that people pleasing would come up in my life. And it was through this awareness that I realized that it was actually in my work environment that this tendency to people please became so loud. And one of the big things for me was, can I have dogs at weekends? And I would always say, yes, yes, I have a dog. Of course I have a dog. No problem. Even though it was a problem most of the time, and I would create absolute hell for myself in trying to now accommodate this dog for the weekend. But the thought of saying no just felt like impossible. And in reflection, I think one of the reasons why it may have felt impossible was because I never had any evidence that said I could say yes. And like I said, whilst at this point I was aware of how I was people pleasing and I was coming to this point of like, oh, I don't want to keep saying yes when I don't mean it. But it just felt impossible in an environment that I had this behavior and this pattern had been so ingrained and so rooted that it just really didn't feel like something that I could move through. And then I went to the nudist beach and everything changed. So let's jump into the story. So there I am on the beach, and I think it must have been maybe my third or fourth visit at this point. and I was laying on my towel and I felt a presence approaching, and there was a naked man standing directly in front of my towel. And I'm getting a little used to this now, so I wasn't so quite taken back. But he said hello, and he asked, would I like to play a game of frisbee? And I will be honest, I was taken back by that because my first thought was, well, you don't have a frisbee in your hand, so that's strange. But what was so interesting in this moment was that for the first time ever, I could feel my energy more over his. And I remember coming so aware of this feeling and this thought. And it was, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to get up naked and start playing a game of frisbee where you've got to bend and stretch and, ugh, no, I don't want to. But I could feel this inner conflict, this inner voice that said, just be a nice person, Gemma, and say yes. And I don't know what happened in that moment, but something shifted within me because I felt a feeling that I had never felt before. And I found myself saying, with nothing but conviction and assertiveness, I found myself saying, no, that's not something that I wish to do. And I remember in that moment thinking, who is this person and where has she come from? Because I had never heard myself speak like that before. I had never heard myself and felt this inner power, this inner surge of energy that said, no, that is not something that I wanted to do. And he was a little taken back because, again, I don't think he was expecting that response. I was a little taken back because I wasn't expecting that response. And we both kind of just said goodbye and he walked away. And I remember sitting there perplexed, thinking, what has just happened? Because I didn't know that I had that part of me within me. Being assertive and speaking with conviction was something that terrified me. And truly, I thought that I never could do. Yet, I had just done it. And then I heard this inner voice, and she said, and now you have the evidence that you can say no. I really wanted to share this story because this is a story that I've really contemplated on, and I really, through a lot of reflection, have realized it's one of the biggest shifts that have come from that beach because I now had the evidence that I could say no. And I really reflected on where did that inner power come from? Where did I find that strength and that courage to say no when I had never experienced it before? And I really sat and was like, where has this come from? And I realized it came from this place of I matter. Being naked on that beach, being vulnerable, feeling so far out my comfort zone, created this sense I matter and I will protect myself and I will speak up for my truth. Because in this state of pure nakedness, no one is going to stand up for you but yourself. And I had never experienced that side of me before. I had never experienced this inner strength to say, you matter, Gemma. Your opinion matters, your wants matter, your desires matter. What you feel in this moment matters. And it's interesting actually, I was having a recent conversation around this and how you would think being in that vulnerable state would actually make it harder to say no because you would think being in an environment that you're very familiar with or being fully clothed, you would have more confidence and you would have more power and empowerment to say no. And I can see that. But interestingly, that hasn't been my experience. And it got me really contemplating the question of, but where does that confidence to say no truly come from? Does that confidence to say no come from a job title that gives you power and authority? Does that confidence to say no come from a safe environment that your nervous system is familiar in? And is that truly confidence if it is reliant on an external source? Because I realized that my confidence, my courage to speak no came from nothing but truth, from what was true in the moment for my body. And that I didn't need anything external to give me that strength to say no. And it's so interesting because the more that I have been doing these episodes, the more I have come to realize that with every story that I'm sharing and every story that I am to share, the truth that you have everything you need already within you. And sometimes you just got to take it all off to fully see it. And that inner power to say no, I have taken from that beach and I have been able to use it in those environments that I always would just say yes. And it has given me the strength every time that I go into work and I get asked a question and I can feel myself starting to say, I pause and I say, I have the evidence that I can say no. And is it easy? No. Do I still sometimes say yes when I mean no? Yes. But something special has happened. I realized that this inner awareness that I matter and being able to advocate for this part of me has given me the strength to have conversations with people that I never would, to put myself in new situations, to have experiences, to speak my truth, to give my opinion because my voice matters, my opinions matter, and I never truly felt that before. And it's interesting, I was talking to a friend and she was saying, but how can you just not care what other people think? And I thought about that and I really think it's not about that I don't care what other people think because I do care what other people think. I just now care more about how I feel. And how I feel has become the most important thing in my life and become my guiding light in every part, every element of my life. Because actually, if it doesn't come from truth, then it doesn't serve me. And it certainly doesn't serve that other person. This episode for me was one that I really was looking forward to sharing because coming from this place where I really never felt that I could ever say the words no. And it felt such an impossible task, one that I never was ever going to move through, to a place where I can say no because it's the truth of what is true for me in that moment and hold space for somebody else's reaction and hold the space for my feelings for whatever arises. And it sounds so simple to just say no. Yet I think when you've never experienced that ease around saying that word, saying saying no when you truly didn't think that word was yours to say means so much to me. And the gift that when it comes from you and you alone and that confidence from within means that no one can ever take it away. So I ask you, where in your life are you saying yes when your body, your heart, and your truth is saying no? And what if that was the opportunity for you to finally learn to say no? Thank you for joining me on this episode. If this story has resonated, I would love to hear. You can message me directly, or you can message me on Instagram at the Naked Woman Podcast. Join me next time where we continue the story of getting naked here on the Naked Woman Podcast.